Hey, fellow skeptics, Lester the Skeptic Tank here. Not sure if this is going to be a talk on browser wars, but for many of those who work what would be termed a white collar job, particularly when you're sitting in front of the computer and with a lot of touch points in a given industry or workplace, you access multiple websites. And for this initial installment, if you will, given I'm a predominantly Linux user, I will cover, at least in the immediate touch points of a Linux user, particularly Slackware. We're going to cover some of the historics around certain offerings. So, everyone knows about Google Chrome. It's been quite popular, and I know there's been growing grumblings about Chrome for various and multiple reasons. Uh, And I know I had talked about in a recent appearance on Pop Talk. Uh, thank you, Mike from Pacific 414. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the guy and his channel. You know, good discussion and banter. And if you're into video game playthroughs, give him a watch, give him a listen. So it's not the browser wars of late, not as cutthroat, not as down and dirty as it once was. So I'm going to take you down a little bit down memory lane. Let's do something here. See if I can bring up my screen. There it is. For those who grew up in the interwebs around the mid to late 90s, will remember this, and I don't recall if it's still around, but this is still around. I have a buddy with a AOL.com email address. Let me see if I can go down to, let's go look at images. For those who remember, let's view that in full screen effect. Now, this is based on a Mac user, based on, you can tell by the title bar. Uh, this is what you would call an online service. For those who remember CompuServe, if getting those mailers, especially in the mid 90s when I was getting uh, acclimated to being on the internet, we, when my parents got our first uh, internet connected computer, we had tried every trial under the sun. I think our very first foray as a family, anyway, I remember coming in contact with the interwebs via Prodigy because our one of our longtime family friends had been the first, if memory serves, the first to be connected. So we went through Prodigy. We didn't know what to do. It was just click here, click there, and oh, we're online. And I remember when we got our Pentium 150 machine, we started with MSN. Uh, that was the online service that we were using at the time. So, for those who remember, America Online was this vast ecosystem that was centralized where you would not only go on the web, browse certain websites, but you would get in touch with folks within the AOL community and You would go into various AOL chat rooms. Let's see if I can dig up something. Let's go look for Prodigy. Oh, geez. Prodigy. There we go. Let's see if this gives us. Ah ha ha! Right here. Yes, this is what it would look like. At least when I remember it. CompuServe is the other. Oop, not Costco. I'm not looking for that. I'm trying to remember if there was another. CompuServe, America Online, MSN. Those were the popular ones. Let's see if I can get a. Let's see if this one does it. Aha. Looks like a Windows 95 ish window. Hmm. Oh, Windows Millennium and Windows 2000. Yeah, they were still around then. Okay. Well, going back to that, um, it was interesting when my family transitioned out of AOL, and this is by the time we were moving to from I should say moving to cable internet from dial up. And it was kind of like a different world because I don't know. This was just the reputation I had grown up around when it came to making that jump. That AOL was kind of limited, that you were kind of sheltered. I could be totally wrong off those assumptions or those stigmas. Uh, and it's like, oh, you there's a wider world out there in terms of where you can go on the internet. And you thought you were in a bubble. Thought I don't know if they gave we gave each other the impression we were caged, we were jailed by AOL, but it was something, especially with when we made that jump to cable internet, and the provider at the time uh, was talking about, yeah, you can keep your AOL. It's just going to be like you had to keep your AOL account for a nominal cost. I think it was like $9 at the time that you would reduce your AOL bill, and that would be just like $9 a month to keep your account. And then we just kept telling my mom, why do you do that? Especially with the parsing out of the various services, namely around late '90s, early aughts, you were getting uh, out of that bubble of AOL and into what was called AOL Instant Messenger. And if memory serves, they kindly put the death knell on that service and application. Uh, it was popular back in the early aughts, and it still had steam. But don't get me started on when it came to trying to enact that talk feature while you were behind a router. That was no fun, and that was quite a trip trying to troubleshoot that. That aside, all right. Um, so we go into browsers, and especially for those in the school system that were trying to get students more connected to the greater web, especially in those school systems that were predominantly Mac based. So I don't know about you, many of you, but a lot of schools, particularly in the San Diego area where I went to school, we had the Apple IIe's, we had the Macintoshes, and of course you had the various browser solutions at the time. One of them being Netscape. You know, when you talk about who were the giants in terms of the browsing world, uh, Netscape was a big name. Netscape Navigator was the browser in question. And then, of course, Internet Explorer, which, of course, for those who didn't get to follow the hubbub around Internet Explorer, particularly when it came to Windows, I think it was Windows 98, when they talked about the browser integration with Windows 98 and how that proved monopolistic. And as I lamented over that pop talk last week, that pop talk about uh, how apparently, even though people want to put a kibosh on monopolies, the government appears to be rather, what would I call it? Acquiescent. They're very accommodating to businesses acquiring other businesses. Is it a matter of fear of letting the others fall? Hmm. Okay. Anyway, all jokes, semi jokes aside, let's get back to our browser discussion. So, as you're seeing right now, I'm rocking with Firefox. Okay, but back in the day, you had Netscape Navigator and Internet Explorer. So, what about for Linux users? And I had worked with Linux on and off during the early aughts, and then coming back in 2010 as I told the story in other videos I've done. So, this right now is Mozilla Firefox, right? Yeah. And there are some things that I appreciate in Firefox, some things that I wish were better. So, of course, with Firefox, it comes bundled with a lot of distributions, uh, mainly for those Slackware users like me. They they bundle it over Chrome, and one of the reasons why they've done that, like their decision to bundle KDE along with XFCE and not have GNOME as part of their package, is because of they're having to deal with the constant deliveries upstream with respect to updates. Like it's just too much to deal with. And what you're seeing right here is another offering that does come bundled with Slackware, Seamonkey, which I try to, let me bring it out here. I try to figure if I can call this the direct successor to Netscape, because if I'm not mistaken, Netscape was what is, as I'm looking, is dubbed as an internet suite, which consolidates, going back to that AOL bubble, that uh, that internet suite, including calendar and mail management. So if that's what you're looking for, the question is, what do you want as your daily driver? You- For those who know me, they know I've spent time in various segments of the martial arts community, and another term would be like your EDC or everyday carry. What is your go to in terms of browsing choices? So SeaMonkey not only is available for Linux or comes bundled with Linux, but as I came to know, that it's also available for, let's see here, see if I can get to that page here. Official builds. It is available for the multiple platforms out there for those who work on desktop machines, whether we're talking Windows based, Linux based, or Mac based. Uh, and it doesn't make any distinction, at least for my what I can tell, as far as Mac OS is concerned. And the one thing I appreciate is a lot of those software companies that devise solutions for Mac OS, whether we're talking the M-based processors or Intel, because there's still a lot of people rocking the Intel-based Mac or MacBooks, of which I am one of those. Um, yeah, one of the things that I've come to appreciate is that though my preference rests in Linux, I'm not entirely too wed to Linux. It's like one of those, what are my trade-offs I'm willing to live with? Like, yes, Mac is so easy, a caveman can do it. Like I joked about my installing of software on Linux in past videos. It's like reason why I moved from Ubuntu to Slackware is I needed something to challenge me. Uh, I mean, everything's at your fingertips, thankfully. For those who don't want to deal with that, that's the one strength of Linux is that what are your objectives? What is your end state when you want to adopt whether Linux or Mac OS? Mac OS is kind of like a best of both worlds where you supposedly get the better uh, reliability. I don't know about security because I've heard past Mac users, or I should say current Mac users, running into viruses. Going back to Seamonkey, you've got this as a possible choice. And as you saw, I have this, and I did look. One of the things that I haven't tested yet, that I'm going to test in the coming days, is particularly with footprint with respect to memory resources. Then again, I can't be crying about my lack of resources with 64 gigs of RAM. Uh, I'm more going to be worried about site compatibility, uh, functionality with with uh, certain sites that I use for work day in and day out. Media consumption, like I'll test Netflix, uh, because every browser has its strengths and weaknesses. One thing I can say right away, looking in the add-ons section for SeaMonkey, there isn't the number of add-ons or extensions that Firefox has. And I also test the interoperability with the mail and calendar integration within SeaMonkey. If you don't want to use a separate email client like a Thunderbird for Linux users, Mac Mail for Mac users, or Outlook for Windows users, uh, you know, or uh, the other offering, something I found which came bundled is Falcon, if I spell that right. I've used it. It works decently with the Teams site, and but I notice how clunky it performs, and it doesn't have the like SeaMonkey. It doesn't have the add-on or extension support that Firefox or Chrome or Chromium-based browsers, which another option, and it's become popular. And for Windows users, again, this is a browser that I use in my Mac and in my Windows machines. Uh, it's Chromium based, and everyone's talked about Brave. Brave is an option, but the major thing about Vivaldi is yes, for those who are open source or bust, there are some proprietary things as I found based on the various Chromium based browsers I've used in the past that let's say I'm going to open up this tab, open up another tab, and I'll go here. More often than not, you only have one direction or one of two. You can close the tab to the right or the other tabs. So you have no choice. Unlike in Firefox, uh, you have the choice of closing tabs to the left. That's been around in Firefox for who knows how long now. But that has been my major gripe about Chrome or other Chrome based or Chromium based browsers, that you never have that option to close tabs to the left. Why? I can't answer that, and I haven't been able to find a straight answer on that. So if I do this here, open another tab, open another tab, I can go close multiple tabs. There you go. Close tabs to the left, close tabs to the right, or close other tabs. Vivaldi gives users that. Um, the other thing I noticed between Chrome and Firefox, and I will throw in Vivaldi on top of that, is the integration of notes, at least what I found is that Mozilla had put out an extension. It doesn't look like they've maintained it, unfortunately, but they actually have a note tool that apparently I couldn't find in Chrome, not even as an add-on, even in the Chrome Web Store, that you would say that's an officially provided or supported note extension. Vivaldi, on the other hand, it it has that. As you can see here, uh, you see that thing on the right where I can say, okay, view panel, and I can say notes panel. And so they've got the notes thing. I will say right away, if your goal is theme, consistency, and integration with certain extensions like your notes, you can see right away it does the job, and it's it does a good job of that. Uh, Also, if you're into sectioning and organizing your notes, you can create a note hierarchy, as you're seeing here. The only problem, and this is something I've noticed with Vivaldi or anything Chrome based, is there's this tendency, depending on the website, of course, that your page rendering scaling goes out of whack. More often than not, it ends up minimized or shrunk, that it goes to like 60% versus 100% scaling. That can drive me up the wall. The other thing, at least in Linux, it tended to be a ticking time bomb when it came to crashing randomly. And that's what I found in my experience. The thing that I came to appreciate with Vivaldi, it did a better job, and I normally don't highlight certain work parameters, but I found the copying and pasting a lot more giving in Vivaldi versus Firefox. Firefox is very inconsistent when it comes to copying, pasting certain fields, and like PDFs, for example. Um, I found that I couldn't double click and it'll highlight a single line. I would have to manually uh, highlight the line, which can add time if you're not careful to a given task you do. The other thing about Firefox's notes is that it doesn't integrate with the theme that you've chosen. At least not that I can see that I can change how it looks. I I can, and I can't put it into a hierarchical format if I wanted to. I can deal with this. This is fine. Um, the funny thing about Vivaldi is, based on the current discussions I've tried to find things on. Let's go to Vivaldi here in the end of the notes. Is that, sorry about that, guys? Let's go and find Vivaldi. There it is. One thing I found is I couldn't exactly export notes. So you go to Tools, Notes, or where is this? File, Export, and you say, I want to export my notes. But there's no place to export it, or nothing indicating that I can export my notes. It doesn't. I go, I'm going to type in notes, right? Yep. And so I had to go into my local apps folder or anything that would store the notes, and I would have to export it that way. For those uh, unfamiliar with digging into those kinds of files or where to dig for those, that's not exactly user friendly. And the irony is if I can, let's go ahead and move to Firefox, and I can actually do this, and I can go. Let's see if I can go to notes. I thought I would be able to. Bear with me here. Tools. Hmm. Oh wait, here we go. I think it's here. Export all notes. Okay. I was going to demonstrate how this function still works. That's my intention anyway. And I can take it into Vivaldi. Oh, that's not Vivaldi. That's Falcon. There it is. If I so wanted to, let's go into notes. See if I can import a note. I haven't done this in a while. Let's see, new folder. Let's create a new folder here. I'll go into test. That's kind of nice. Tree search. See if I can. New note. Let's see. I thought I could import. Let's see. Import. Let's see if I can bring in. Let's see. Documents. Let's see if it's in tools. Notes. Let's see if I can open a file. Documents. And see, at least it can do that for me. That I can take this and bring those notes if I wanted to and put it that way, which is kind of cool and kind of sad altogether. So, particularly for me, I like to have my notes and scratch paper stuff within the same area. I don't like having to alt tab too often. You kind of see me fumbling there with the multiple windows, which is another reason why I like having my multiple desktops that I do. That way, as long as I have a head on my shoulders telling me, okay, this desktop is for that, this desktop is for this, I can then uh, switch among windows more easily. Um, Again, like I said, I haven't gotten to Seamonkey. I'm probably going to do some testing on the side with respect to. Let me go ahead and move that out of the way. Yep, I know that before it was a little bit fumbly, but I appreciate your patience, guys, as I was just walking through some browser choices. At least that's on the Linux side. With Windows, I don't know if it's going to reach the point of maturity, but I know there's Edge from many Windows users. Apple, I will probably do something on my MacBook. I'll probably do some presenting there. Um, as far as notes, I think the same behavior and hijinks persists on the Mac version of Vivaldi. I haven't tested that yet, but I'll probably go on my MacBook and do some exploring there as well to see if they still run into the same issue. I think the Mac discussion is the same. They can't exactly export your notes out. Again, sad in certain cases. Mac and Vivaldi. Oh, by the way, let me explore this aspect of Vivaldi that you might like. Is there's a feature depending on your day-to-day operation within your work computer. For example, I can move this tab and I can rename tabs with the latest version of Vivaldi. I can move it down to a new window, and hibernate tab. Interesting. There was a feature, and it's something that's a little bit more. Oh, there it is. Let me. There was a feature called workspaces. Let me see if I can. Let's see. Hmm. At least on the Mac version, I got used to using it. I'll probably figure that some. Let's see. View, show address bar, show panels, translate web panels. Hmm. Okay. But yes, workspaces was a. Oh yeah, let me go ahead and bring that up here. Apologies. So yes, let's see. Start page. Move tab. It seems like workspaces is only. Let me see if I can. Bookmarks. Paste and go. Let's see what. At least this is the Linux version of Vivaldi. Mm, it appears that it's only available on the Mac. I'll have to explore that. Um, but there used to be a function, at least on the Mac version, I could say move tab, and they'll say move to not a new window, but move to a different workspace. Let's see if I can do that. Customize. General. Homepage. Very interesting. That was often a thing back in the day. I don't know what you guys feel about homepage setting. What is your go-to homepage? I usually just leave it blank. Anyway, all right. Let's see. Tabs, memory saver. Nope. Oh, there we go. Workspaces. Enable workspaces. Aha. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So what I was saying with workspaces is you can. Wow, I already had these established, and yeah, I gotta. Ah, ha, ha. All right. So yes, it is available. It's just gotta. I don't know if it's enabled or disabled by default, but it's just something where you can categorize your working tabs depending on what work mode you're in. Whether like I had mine research, um, work, and streaming. If I'm going to be streaming, uh, so the choices are available. Like I said, with Seamonkey, Vivaldi, Firefox, Chrome, Chromium, they're available for every platform, and that's going to be up to you. The question of what is it going to be determining your daily use? Like, okay, I'm going to go to this website, or I'm going to click on this link in whatever email. What browser am I going to open it in? Is it going to be Vivaldi? Is it going to be Firefox? Is it going to be Chrome? That's going to be up to you. A lot of these things, a lot of people will say, "Hey, I'm a big advocate for this." I'm an advocate for certain things for specific reasons because those are my those are my baselines. Those are my tests. Those are my what are desired end states, if you will. Uh, you know, I mean, back in the day when was very adamant about why they didn't include Chrome for the longest time, and they still don't. When you download Slackware and install it, it is offered in the file tree for Slackware nowadays because the growing contention at the time was they inserted a library called PAM, which was a security liability, which is on top of the things with updates on the upstream. I notice it with my phone browser, Vanadium. For those who are Graphene OS users, you know what I'm talking about. Vanadium was a very specifically designed phone browser, and there have been constant updates. Yeah. Nobody wants to deal with having to integrate with the constant updates, um, and so forth. Uh, Again, what's your test? What's your desired end state when it comes to browsing the web? A lot of the caricatures about Firefox versus Chrome. Chrome is security, Firefox is privacy. The question is, why can't we have both? Why can't we have both? Incognito. They talk about using a VPN, things like that. But you know, I know it seems like I've been rambling on about browser choices, but especially for folks like myself who work a white collar job, sitting in front of a computer, and they tap into various work related websites. You know, like what browser, and I've noticed in my use of Falcon there has been uh, a good deal of memory consumption, and that's been one of the things when it comes to navigating the browser wars, if you will, is that why is going to a certain website, and I noticed that various social media sites have evolved to the point where why is it such a memory hog? Yeah. We used to we used to build computers based on very niche purposes. Gaming was probably the biggest one, and intensive mathematical computations and drafting and design applications like Photoshop, those were the benchmarks for computers. But browsing the web, yeah, why would that require a beefy computer? And then it just somehow hit me like Facebook and the flash games of yore. Former Farm Bill players, you know who you are. And I think I was on Bejeweled Blitz at one point. But anyway, hopefully that wasn't too long winded, but likely was. So, again, thank you for your patience, fellow skeptics, as we explored, at least on the Linux side, to start the various browsing options. And not to mention, there's another Linux browser out there. I think it's called Pale Moon, not to be confused with Pale IPA or something along those lines. If I could spell browser right. Jeez Louise. There it is. Another choice. You know, you've got to. Part of this whole thing about being a skeptic, and it's funny when I look at my own uh, ventures, whether we're talking just computing or anything, it's almost like, okay, that sounds cool, but sometimes you got to jump in and test things out, and sometimes test it with an open mind. At the very least, I hope I've driven that point. And if not, my sincerest apologies. Okay, fellow skeptics, enough of me rambling on about web browsers. Peace out, and I'll catch you all on the other side.